Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Nepal passes amendment on new map. Nepal's lower house of the parliament recently passed the second constitutional amendment bill to include new map incorporating Indian areas of Limpiadura, Lipulek and Kalapani, bringing changes to the political map of Nepal in spite of India's insistence for talks. What exactly happened? The voting took place in the House of the Representatives. All the representatives came up and they had a day long discussion with respect to introduction and signing of this bill. The amendment was approved by a voice vote, and members of the Pratinidhi Sabha, which happens to be the House of the Representatives, gave individual signatures to the bill, ultimately bringing closure to this voting process. What will add to India's misery is that most of the members from different political parties who had previously supported the stand of India wanted to have due consensus with India, wanted to have talks with India and settle this amicably, also supported this bill, and ultimately this adds to the injury of India. So what is that India has said with respect to this constitutional amendment bill? Responding to this development, the Ministry of External Affairs, with respect to this new change in the political map, has said that this has been noted by India. The legislative process has been taken seriously by India. This artificial enlargement by Nepal, which has no historical facts, which has no historical data or any evidence with respect to Nepal, has been taken into picture, and this is violative of the current understanding between India and Nepal, says the Ministry of External Affairs from India. This raises couple of concerns. What are these concerns? The diplomatic fallout of this territorial dispute is further likely to get serious and exasperate between India and Nepal. Further, we will have difficult times ahead. India and Nepal have a cultural backing. They have a long history of understanding between the countries. They have an open border. And now what we will see is that India and Nepal relationship going ahead will have difficult issues, and this could also disturb the southern Asian region as well. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Kindly note the other related issue with respect to all these important criterias have been discussed in the past 1 to 2 week of CNA. Kindly get back to it and look at these issues. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about India and China's relationship. There are two articles we have taken under this issue. One is present on your page 1, which is about the words of the army chief. The other is understanding the difference between the line of control and the line of actual control. First, let us look at the statement made by the army chief. The army chief in this particular article has spoken about disengagement protocols, that which has been taken between India and China. He speaks about talks between India and China on the military level, and he also speaks about at the diplomatic level as well. On the military level, he says that this particular discussion about withdrawal by the troops of China and India has been fruitful. He says that the situation has been improving further, and all the issues of skirmishes and tussles will be put to rest, and the perceived differences between India and China will be settled. He speaks about the military level talks. He said that we have had the commander level talks. We have also had engagements with respect to local level commanders who are actually present at the border. Both these issues mean that all these differences that India and China has with respect to the line of actual control will be eventually settled. So he brings into argument that all the perceived differences that we have till now with respect to the line of actual control across India-China border will be settled amicably, and we will also have the templates for the near future. This is with respect to the first article. With respect to the second article, we have had elaborate analysis in the past, but there is one key point that we have to understand. One is the difference between the line of control, then the line of actual control. What is the line of control? Line of control is the demarcated area between India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan have an international border. This is understood. There is amicable settlement of it, and what we have is international border which India and Pakistan have consensus to it. Then what we have is called as line of control. This line of control is present in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and this has also been accepted as well. And what we have is that clear demarcation which is present on the map when it comes to the line of control. So there is clear cut map lines that are drawn on the map when it comes to the line of control, but the same is not with respect to the line of actual control. What happens in line of actual control? There is undemarcated area. There are no lines that are present on the map. China claims that there are some parts which belongs to China. India says this is an official map of India and the entire Ladakh belongs to India. So the map is not clear. There are no clear-cut demarcations. There is no visualization on the map. This eventually leads to tussles between India and China. What is so strange about this line of actual control is that in spite of these differences existing between India and China, not a single bullet has been fired from either sides. The last that we saw was in the year 1975, and that was with respect to the Tulungla incident, where one of the armed force personnel from Assam Rifles was killed by the Chinese soldier. That was the last incident, and after this we have not fired a single bullet from both the sides. That's something strange is what this article says. Apart from this, all the discussion that we have had with respect to India and China, so kindly look into the past 2 weeks of CNA. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about forest fire and the prevention steps. This article in detail has been explained on 17th Feb 2020. What is a forest fire? What are the causes of forest fire? What is the natural cause? What is a man-made cause? What could be the economic impact? What would be the environmental impact? What could be its effect on the biodiversity? And what are the disaster management steps that one has to take has been explained clearly. Our second topic for causes, types, impact and containment strategy at 3 minutes 41 seconds. So kindly look into it for the elaborate analysis. In the present scenario, the southern bench of the National Green Tribunal has given about 1 month to the Kerala Forest Department. Why? Because they believe that the Kerala Forest Department has not submitted reports with respect to how it is planning to contain the spread of forest fire, prevent forest fire, and what are the steps it intends to take with respect to the National Action Plan on Forest Fire. So this report will have to be submitted to the National Green Tribunal in the next 1 month is what is the order given by the National Green Tribunal. Now let's look into the next article. This article says returning laborers may be deployed for Jal Jeevan mission. First, let us understand what is this Jal Jeevan mission. Many in India do not have access to the drinking water. When they do not have access to the drinking water, it ultimately leads to poverty. How? Let me give you an example. There are people who do not have access to drinking water. So they drink water which is not of quality and it might have impurities as well. So the minute they have impurities, they are ingested into the body, they may come up with another issue, and that is related to the health issue. Now they do not have money, they have to shell out a lot of money from their hands, and ultimately the poverty persists. So this is a major problem in combating poverty. So the main important factor is providing drinking edible water with quality to the poor people. Followed by this, households in India have no access to drinking water. They spend large of their time in traveling long distances just to get mere drinking water. Their productivity goes for a toss and they have to walk long distances, which means a lot of labor is invested for getting this drinking water. Also remember, water is one of the important fundamental rights which is ingrained under right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. Right to life is an important ingredient. This also has an aspect of right to health. Right to health also means that right to quality water will have to be provided to the people of India. The Supreme Court and the High Court of multiple states have testified this very fact that water is a fundamental right and quality water has to be provided to the people of India. In order to ensure that drinking water is provided, a movement needs to be taken up. What is this movement all about? This requires multi-stakeholder approach. The government steps in, you have the civil society which steps in, and ultimately people take the responsibility of conservation. So it cannot be one side movement where the government takes the steps and people go on wasting water without conserving it, but you have the multi-stakeholder approach where the government steps in, provides all the required infrastructure, the civil society steps in where all the people comply by the rules, and you have people taking up the responsibility of conserving the water. So basically what this Jal Jeevan mission does, it brings the government, it brings the civil society, and it also brings the people, so that infrastructure for the drinking water can be provided to the people in rural area, and they also have the responsibility to conserve this very act. So people from all walks of life have to be integrated in this particular moment where water, drinking water which is edible, which has quality in it, is provided to people who are living in the rural areas. It will include extensive information given by the government, education and communication as a key component of the mission. And what it also encourages as part of conservation is rainwater harvesting as well. So basically what this movement does, it provides pipe drinking water supply to the people of rural India. How? The government brings up the local infrastructure, how it starts investing in this particular process, and people in need are getting all the necessary edible water for their daily activities. This will also include the convergence of the central government, the state government, and the local level authorities, so that this can become a fruitful exercise. Therefore, every household in the rural setup will be provided with a drinking water supply with adequate quantity of prescribed quality on a regular basis, on a long time basis, at an affordable delivery charge, leading to improvement in their living standards as well as community standards. What is the significance of this move? Basically, this will help in creating huge business opportunities for all the corporates. The corporates may not venture into the rural India. They may not venture into the tier 3 and tier 4 cities. Why? Because basic necessities are not met in these areas. Now, with the improvement of water facilities, infrastructure being developed, people are present in that area. This will open up business opportunities for multiple corporates. The move would also provide employment to millions of people and may kickstart the investment cycle as we initially discussed. Why employment? Because this will require infrastructure, this will require people being employed for semi-skilled as well as underskilled people as well, because they have to lay the pipes for the infrastructure development. Such investment will also result in job creation and indirectly bringing ancillary economic activities. The minute there is a major project in that particular area, this could give rise to number of shops in that region. This could also bring up other economic activities in and around that region. Why are we discussing all this? That is because there is a move in the present scenario where the central government has requested all the state governments that there are a couple of migrant workers who are going back to their native states. When you have these migrant workers coming back to your home states, what you have to do is bring them onto this Jal Jeevan mission. So as we initially discussed, this will require local infrastructure. This will require people who are semi-skilled, who are underskilled, and most of these people who are going back to their home states can be employed in the Jal Jeevan mission, is what the central government has said to the state governments. So the state governments will have to identify them. They will have to provide them all the employment criteria under this Jal Jeevan mission, and ultimately these people who may be suffering because of COVID-19 crisis will have money in their hands because of Jal Jeevan mission. So the whole idea being that all those people who are going back from their working state to their home state will be employed in this mission of Jal Jeevan mission. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about great oxidation event. The Earth witnessed one of the greatest events 2.4 billion years ago, which led to life in planet Blue. What was this? This is what is called as Great Oxidation Event, or this is also called as Oxygen Revolution. What happened in this oxygen revolution? Until then, we didn't have much of oxygen, but with this event, what we see is sudden steep increase in oxygen, that which were used by the living organisms. What exactly caused the sudden increase in this oxygen? One of the possible reasons is with the presence of the cyanobacteria. The cyanobacteria happens to be the Earth's oldest organism. They took in carbon dioxide, they also gave out oxygen as well. These cyanobacteria are present today in oceans, water, as well as hot springs as well. It is because of these bacteria there was sudden increase of oxygen, which also gave life to multiple other organisms. While this was happening, this also became threat to other organisms as well. Other organisms were living on other gases, but now with increase in oxygen, this also led to extinction of other lives as well. So because oxygen was poisonous for large number of anaerobic organisms, many anaerobic types of bacteria were also eliminated. But there comes an issue. We did discuss that cyanobacteria is one of those organisms which might have increased the oxygen. Yes, they have increased, but there is lack of consensus among the scientific community. The oxygen that increased in the atmosphere was in the range of about 10,000 times what was present during those times. This means that cyanobacteria alone could not have added so much of oxygen into the atmosphere, which might have also required other processes, other organisms, or any other major things that happened in the earth. These things are still not deciphered, de-encrypted by the geologists as well as other scientific community. One of the proposals in the present article says, in case we are able to understand the activities of the volcanic eruptions, the mantle evolution, then there could be a possibility of understanding this great oxidation event, is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says IIT Madras study reveals metabolism of key gut microbiota. First, let us understand what is a gut. A gut is nothing but the digestive system from the mouth up until the anus. There are millions of bacteria in our body. There are bad bacteria which harm us, which injure us, and ultimately causes diseases to us. Then there are good bacteria as well. They help in digestion. They also help in digestive system keeping it clean. And these bacteria which are good for the human body, that is what is called as probiotics. So what are probiotics? Probiotics are those millions of bacteria that are present in the gut region which are helpful for the human beings. Why? They help in digestion and they also keep us healthy as well. Some of the important good bacteria or probiotics include Bifidobacterium adolescentes and B. longum, which are found in the human body, and you also have the Bifidum, which are found in the infant gut. What is the purpose of this experiment? The IIT Madras experiment basically tries to identify the molecules because of certain diets. What we have is different types of food habits. When we eat something sweet, it could result in a particular chemical reaction. When we eat something sour, it could react in a particular reaction. And when we eat something which is spicy, this could also react in a reaction as well. All these reactions will ultimately give to certain types of bacteria as well. So identifying what type of bacteria could be present for a particular type of diet, identifying what type of bacteria can it give rise to when there is a particular chemical composition, and when you identify such bacteria and the chemical composition, you would be able to enhance the probiotics and also minimize the bad bacteria in the gut, is what are the trials that are being conducted. Since these are trials, we do not have much of evidence with respect to the experiments. Once we have the clear-cut evidence and the theory, we will have an elaborate discussion for the same. Now let's look into the next article. This article says, can a COVID-19 vaccine be developed soon? This article here speaks about the development of the vaccine. An elaborate analysis of this development of the vaccine is explained on 13th of March 2020 under the first topic, COVID-19 vaccine at least 2 years away, which speaks about the vaccine development. Kindly look into this analysis. But what are we discussing under this article right now? We will be focusing on three important aspects, and these happen to be the concerns with respect to the vaccine development. The first key concern by default is with respect to time. When we speak about vaccine development, it will include a long process. This has to be experimented, this has to be checked, clinical trials have to be conducted, its efficacy have to be tested on multiple frameworks, and ultimately this will have to be produced after licensing authority has given permission to it. So this will be a long drawn process which will take at least an year or two. So what is the first major issue? The first major issue is with respect to time. So because there is a time crunch, because there are large number of people who are passing away because of COVID-19, but still we will not have vaccine for at least 6 months to 1 year because of all the methodological structures that have been put with respect to vaccine development is the first key concern. Next we have to look at is with respect to the vaccine development itself. When it comes to diseases in the past, or when it comes to infections or contagious diseases in the past, what we had was traces of vaccine that was already in existence. All that we had to do is change some of the chemical reactions with respect to that vaccine, so the same existing vaccine with its chemical changes could be introduced as a vaccine for this new disease. But with respect to the novel coronavirus, the same cannot be implanted, the same cannot be introduced. Why? Because there is no existing vaccine right now. Previously, when you had diseases or infection, an existing vaccine where changes could have been brought into it could have been introduced for those diseases. But for the novel coronavirus, COVID-19 virus, what we have is no existence of a vaccine. So a new vaccine will have to be created and it will have to be clinically tested is the second key concern. In the past, whenever there has been an infection or there is a new disease that surfaces, we require medicines and the vaccines. The development of these medicines and vaccines would first be tested on the animals. Only if it is serving the positive output, only when the outcome of this particular experiment is positive, this would be given to the human beings. In the present scenario, animal models for the SARS-CoV-2 virus might be difficult to develop, says the articles. The scientific community is also worried about the life of the antibody. What are antibodies? These are nothing but proteins which are immune to the pathogens. The pathogens can be viruses or bacteria, but we do not know how long will these antibodies be present in the body. It might be 1 month, it might be 2 months, it might be 4 months. They do not have any statistical evidence, and as a result of this, there could be a possibility of reinfection in the near future, says the article. So these are some of the concerns as voiced under this article. But for the rest of the article, for the development of the vaccine, kindly look into our discussion on 13th of March 2020. Now let's look into some of the practice questions. Consider the following statements with respect to Saint Dhyaneshwar. He was a 13th century Indian Marathi saint, poet and philosopher. Dhyaneshwar's idea reflect the Dvaita Vedanta philosophy. Which of the above statements is or correct? The answer to this is one only. Why? Dhyaneshwar's idea reflect not the Dvaita philosophy, it speaks about Advaita philosophy. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Kindly remember, he is also called by name Gnaneshwar, Gnanadeva, Dhyanadeva as well as Mauli. He was a 13th century Indian Marathi saint, poet, philosopher and yogi of Nath Vaishnava tradition. Dhyaneshwar's idea reflect the non-dualistic Advaita Vedanta philosophy, and he has also authored Dhyaneshwari, which happens to be a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. What are his contributions to the society? Apart from great knowledge, philosophical knowledge and knowledge with respect to religion, he has also added value to the social issues as well. One was with respect to the caste. When it comes to caste, he did not believe in the concept of caste system, and his approach was more humanitarian, and he advocates spiritual egalitarianism. Anyone who has accomplished spirituality is able to understand and connect with God. That is what springs the spiritual egalitarianism. Guru Dhaneshwar also gave beautiful interpretations for life. He said that humility has to be the character of a person. There should be purity in both heart as well as mind, and non-injury, which also leads to ahimsa vadi, is one of the key ingredient of his philosophy for life. Why does this become important? Because UPSC in the past has asked questions about Bhakti movement and about personalities. One such important question is with respect to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Bhakti movement received a remarkable reorientation with the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed. So in the near future, there could be a possibility of questions with respect to Dhyaneshwar as well. And he was one of those persons who had it his part when it comes to the Bhakti movement. Another important factor for your preliminary examination is with respect to Pandarpur Wari. What is this? It is an annual pilgrimage to the town of Pandarpur, which is the seat of Hindu god Vitoba in Maharashtra. The Varkaris are nothing but devotees undertaking the Wari, who carry palanquins bearing Paduka, the footprints of Saint Dhyaneshwar and Tukaram, and take about 230 odd kilometers from Aladi and Dev in Pune to the shrine of Lord Vitoba in Pandrapur in Solarpur district. So kindly remember these facts. It can be important for your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next practice question. Megalodon Baikash Kenke, recently seen in news, is a small mammal. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Kindly remember, this is a small mammal which would have lived in southern Patagonia during the late Cretaceous era alongside dinosaurs, crocodiles, turtles and birds. This also speaks about the Gondwana theria. So what is this Gondwana theria? These are nothing but those type of mammals that lived in the southern hemisphere during the age of dinosaurs. The present context says that Chilean and Argentine researchers have unearthed teeth in Patagonia belonging to mammal that lived 74 million years ago. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following are mosquito-borne diseases? Chikungunya, Zika, Rift Valley fever as well as dengue. The answer to this is 1, 2, 3 and 4. All the 4 are mosquito-borne diseases. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following grasslands are correctly matched? Brazil, Campos, Argentina, Pampas, Venezuela, Llanos. The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken this practice question? Because we did discuss about Chile and Argentina, which happens to be in South America. That is why we have taken this practice question. As shown in the picture, we have the Llanos, we will have the Campos here, and what we will have is the Pampas in Argentina. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which one of the following pairs does not form part of 6 systems of Indian philosophy? The answer to this is Lokayata and Kapalika. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. Today we have essay that you guys will have to write on and put it on our comment section. The first essay says education is not preparation for life, education is life itself. The second says justice must reach the poor. This is a previous year question. Why have we taken this? That is because of the migrant workers issue. So in reference to the migrant workers issue, please write an essay, or you can bring multiple aspects to it, and please write and put it on our comment section so that you guys can have a peer review and also come up with constructive criticism for the same. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.